Hey friends, let's get into September 22nd, 22nd message or like of synchronicities and such. Oh my gosh, what an intro. This is the second video I'm doing of this, but I'm going to just do this day to day for those who are hearing seeing this for the first time, and this can apply to you today on the 22nd of September 2023 or anytime you see this, really. It can be a timeless, part of synchronicity is that when you see it, it's relevant, right? So I'm just going to get into it. First off, I'm going to get into the transits of the day that stood out to me. So these are all happening at an exact degree today. So yeah, let's get into it. Jupiter sessi square the sun. So the sun is still in Virgo. It's in the very, very last bit of Virgo before it's moving into Libra, which is totally focused on relationships. That's a sign of relationships. So a lot of us are feeling relational tension or shifting, something going on that level. You can check out yesterday's video if you're interested. Talked a lot about relationships yesterday, and man, what a day today was, and how some of that played out in my life. But anyway, so first of all, yes, Jupiter sessi square the sun. This is a block in self-expression, and expansion is being slowed by obstacles and the feeling of getting nowhere, right? This is a lot of the energy we were talking about yesterday with Mars, which was sessi square Saturn and still is today. So it's more of this like hitting your head up against a wall. I really did kind of feel this today, where it's like big emotions played out in my life, and just like this big urge to get out now and like move on now, take action now that isn't really doable. It's going to take some longer term, slower, more consistent effort, and looking at a problem to try to figure out how to solve it more than taking any big action at this time. And that sucks because I want to take big action, right? But I have to figure out how to discipline myself and like temper my emotions and whatever. Anyway, that's just me. And you might be feeling some of the same as well when you see this. So, there's a lot of that going on. Jupiter sessi square the sun encourages us to practice patience and to slow and reconsider our options, right? We just talked about. We also have Neptune square the moon today. So that can be a lot of relational issues and not sure what the cause and the solution are, right? Like trying to really get a grasp on what is even happening with our own emotions, where they're coming from, what's triggering them. And in order to figure out how to fix that, find solutions, and work on those solutions, you have to kind of sit with it and take time. That's difficult to do. I feel inspired to say this in the moment too. Something that I've learned over experience over time is if you are feeling a lot of emotions, even on something that you might usually like, you isn't really a new thing, but it's just hitting you more for whatever reason. First of all, understand that time will pass and you'll be able to feel the way you had before. That's not to invalidate what you're feeling in the moment, because sometimes we just hold things in and try to manage it for so long that it just bursts, right? Other times it's like this weird nebulous thing. It comes out of nowhere and we don't really know what it is, what's going on. We just feel a whole lot, and that's very Neptunian. If you are emotional enough to write a big long text message to somebody, you're too emotional probably to send it. So now I can't say that's true in every single scenario, but I can say it's probably true in most. And what I've done in my own life is I started, if I'm feeling that emotional or upset at somebody or trying to want to express myself and I'm feeling really emotional about it, I'll write it in my notes app. And then I'll just let it sit there and make myself, even if I really want to send it, I just like, I'm going to look at this later, like tomorrow or maybe. And sure enough, within a few hours or, at very least the next day, I'm like, I'm so glad I did not send that, because even though the thoughts and feelings may be true, we might at the time not be considering other thoughts and feelings that are also true, that are positive, and kind of balance it out in ways that normally might help us handle that situation. Anyway, that's just a thought that came to mind with that Neptune square the moon that's happening on the 22nd, the day you're seeing, I'm posting this. So the biggest players that stand out to me in the astrology today are is Juno, which is conjunct Venus. So if people don't know, Juno is an asteroid, and the mythology behind Juno is that I believe she was Jupiter's wife, and he was like, went out and just kind of like not faithful at all and really played with her. And she's known as being really, really loyal, but to a fault, right? Sometimes as well. Like it's both a positive thing and a negative thing, depending on how far you take it, right? And how, if you listen to the video yesterday, we talk about, with wine, you smell it first to see if it's even like, if it's like not turned weird or whatever, to see if it's going to be worth drinking. Juno doesn't, her loyalty was so much, very much like, I'm trying to connect this weird message and I'm not really explaining it to you very well. If you're comparing your relationship to a wine, you want to smell it first, or anything you're consuming, you want to see if it's worth ingesting. And then you go and figure out and try to taste all the little notes within and try to figure it out, right? That's where this connects. Juno doesn't taste the little notes. Juno's just like, no, this is my wine. This is what I've invested in, and I'm going to just stick to it. Anyway, you can see where the good things and maybe the hard things in that are. But Juno is huge today, as it's conjunct Venus. And Venus is currently in Leo. So Leo is a very prideful sign. It's very, very showy and outward. It's the sign of the sun is represented by the sun, so it's very present. It wants to be the center of attention. We have Venus conjunct Juno there. So it's like the two energies combine, right? This is Venus, the planet of love and beauty and money, and it wants to love and beautify, conjunct Juno, who also wants to love, sometimes to her own detriment, and sometimes with like a wrath too, where it's like, no, I'm loving you, and it ends up hurting the other person because we're trying to push our love on them in a way that's not healthy, or for them or us, right? So it's really looking at relationships today. And another thing I've noticed there are lots of things happening to Juno. So Juno conjunct Venus is also trining Chiron. So Chiron, the wounded healer, is another asteroid? I think it's a moon. I can't remember all of a sudden. Anyway, I'll look back into that later. But Chiron is the wounded healer. It shows us where we need to improve and heal. And a trine is a positive aspect, so it's very supportive of healing. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with a lot of difficult conversations and like the digging up of old memories and feelings and emotions, maybe attached even to other events or people or places. Maybe the same relationships, whatever it may be. But themes, right? These hard themes that we've dealt with in our life. That it's Chiron is the wound that is re-wounded and kind of influences the way that we see the world and interact with it. for better or for worse. A lot of the time, it's through really painful things that we end up turning into our ability to heal ourselves and others. That's the mythology of Chiron. So, yeah. So with this trine to Venus, it's building bridges and healing wounds with intimate partners or supportive of that, and it's sharing intimate thoughts. So overall, the overall vibe of the day is this still pretty difficult energy with relationships for the collective at the moment, where there's a lot of tension and like trying to like there's tension that we don't really know where exactly it's coming from or what to do with it, but it's really brought to our attention and we really want to act on it, so much so that we want to do it now, but we really got to take little small steps instead of these big dramatic actions. And some of those small steps requires, again, a very similar message to yesterday, sitting in those feelings. And then also, as we do that, maybe you type out that text message to yourself just to figure out what you're even feeling. That's really helpful to do, right? Sometimes in our seeking to be understood by others, we're really seeking to understand ourselves. So that might be a helpful exercise to do. Yeah. I lost my train of thought, but I think I've said what I need to say there. And now on to the rest of the synchronicities. So this is a really funny thing, but I've had the word copacetic stuck in my head all day, like a song. Do you ever get like words stuck in your head, like a song? It just plays over and over again, but it's just a word. And I had to even like Google the definition for copacetic because I've heard it. I know I've like heard it around, but not anytime recently, and I have never used it, and I like didn't even know what it meant. So I Googled it and I found the definition really funny. It says like a copacetic synonyms are like fine or very satisfactory or hunky-dory or like exquisitely in order. Just like, how are things going? Things are going copacetically. That's something I didn't really think about before. Copacetically. I'm just kidding. Copathetically. Just the in there being like relational. How do we make things copacetic? I don't know. I also had like, after I Googled it, the definition, I had like this thought. It was like copacetic definition, make them boys go loco. I don't know, that's just the way my brain works. The Fergie lyric where she's like, Fergalicious definition, but it was copacetic definition, make them boys go loco. And so another thought that came to me was like the idea that maybe some of us are pretending that things are super copacetic, right? That things are hunky-dory when they're really not. And there's like this weird tension because nothing in particular has gone really wrong, but it feels very off. But we're just all acting like it's a copacetic thing, right? Make them boys go loco. It's driving me mad that we're acting like we're fine because we're not. Maybe that's relevant to you. Anyway, and then I had the song Stuck in the Moment, You Can't Get Out of, by U2, stuck in my head. All of a sudden it was just playing in my head, which is something that I'm also like, I've heard around and I like it, but I've never listened, like sought it out or even knew the lyrics until today. Where did the lyrics go? I'm just gonna read this to you really quick. Where did it go? Oh, I'm just gonna read you some of the lyrics. So it starts out by saying, I'm not afraid of anything in this world. There's nothing you can throw at me that I haven't already heard. I'm just trying to find a decent melody, a song that I can sing in my own company. I never thought you were a fool, but darling, look at you. You gotta stand up straight, carry your own weight. These tears are going nowhere, baby. You've got to get yourself together. You've got stuck in a moment and now you can't get out of it. Don't say that later will be better. Now you're stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. And I'm laughing because I didn't know what these lyrics were before. Like, I've heard the tune, but it's so relevant. Like, so relevant. Yeah. And then the rest of the lyrics are really, really great too. Like, I will not forsake the colors that you bring, the nights that you filled with fireworks, they left you with nothing. Oh man. I am still enchanted by the light you brought to me. I listen through your ears, through your eyes I can see. You are such a fool to worry like you do. Oh, I know it's tough, and you can never get enough of what you don't really need now. My, oh my. You've got to get yourself together. You've got stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. Oh, love, look at you now. You've got yourself stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. I'm going to finish reading this because I was unconscious, half asleep. The water is warm till you discover how deep. I wasn't jumping, but for me it was a fall. It's a long way down to nothing at all. You've got to get yourself together. You've got stuck in the moment and you can't get out of it. Don't say that later will be better. Now you're stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. And if the night runs over and the day won't last, and if your way should falter along the stony paths, and if the night runs over and if the day won't last, and if your way should falter along the stony paths, it's just a moment. This time will pass. Okay. All right, Bono. Okay, you too. Oh, right. What? I mean, I feel like that really just goes in line with all of this, right? The time will pass. We're stuck. We're hitting our head against a wall right now, and we can't make the moves we want to make. The fireworks are gone. Things are difficult. It's draining. But the time will pass. And we'll move on one way or another. Got to get yourself together. A really good song. Wow, I'm gonna listen to that later. Anyway, on to the next synchronicity. That's just so cool. That just like popped into my head just randomly today after, I don't know. Okay, so I had the impulse to look up this little book thing that I have. By look up, I mean pull up. It's infinity in your pockets, little math things and definitions and tidbits and whatever. And I wanted to open up, see what I find. That what I landed on was this little section that says stocks and scares. It says probability is of paramount importance to two groups of people, gamblers and stockbrokers. Essentially, these two groups of people play the same game. The gambler will examine. Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. The gambler will examine a horse's track record and will, taking into account other factors such as the jockey and the course conditions on the day, decide whether or not to place a bet depending on the probability of the horse winning. A stockbroker does pretty much the same thing. It's just that the bets are bigger and the consequences of mistakes are somewhat closer to catastrophe. So, probability paramount to gamblers and stockbrokers. The difference is that a gambler invests a lot less, knows that it's really risky business. They're just kind of like, we'll see. And they don't put everything into it, right? Like ideally. Stockbrokers put a lot into it. And so relating this back to these synchronistic messages today, this can apply to any area of your life, right? Like anything that you're focused on, anything Venusian, but it really does seem focused on relationships and ideals. How much are we investing into those ideals? How much are we invested in the idea of this thing really working out for us? Because our energy and our love holds value inherently. It doesn't matter who you are, it holds value. And if we just give that all of our energy into, to it, it can be really, really hard when you love somebody or you just care a lot about somebody to not be so invested, especially when there's tension because it's brought to the forefront of our mind. But it's important not to invest our entire selves into something that is really just a probability game, right? You have to check the conditions, and I don't know, you can make your own decisions based off that. So yeah, that's a little bit that I got from that. I also opened up this book about smells called Revelations in Air. I'm going to read you the little bit that I ran into. So I ran into a page that's talking about ditto sheets, which is something I'm unfamiliar with. I guess it was like a technology of the past for school stuff. Anyway, I still find it really relevant not knowing what it is, because what I landed on, the paragraph says, it both pleases and spooks me to learn that ditto machines produce copies via technology known as the spirit duplicator. For ditto machines, the spirits were methanol and isopropanol, two alcohol-based solvents responsible for the scent. To create the master copy, you'd write, draw, or type on two ply sheets. One sheet was just an ordinary paper and the other was coated with wax impregnated with color, usually aniline mauve. The pressure of writing on the first sheet transferred the colored wax from the second sheet to the coated backside of the first sheet, producing a raised mirror image. You'd then hand crank that paper through the printer and then it would print, right? So that's really interesting to me. First of all, the ditto machine, right? Like dittos, like me too, mirroring, but then also the spirit duplicator. I mean, it just goes hand in hand with, what we're talking about with relationships, especially really, really close, intimate ones, which feel more on a spiritual level, where we tend to mirror each other and each other's behaviors, right? The pressure of writing on the first sheet transferred the colored wax from the second sheet to the coated backside of the first sheet. The pressure we put on others causes them, it's like a cause and effect thing, right? Causes them to print the outcome, right? What I do to you will cause a certain design or result in our relationship. Set it up to make something look or become a certain way, right? I don't know. You could run 50 copies before the waxed original's pigment would get used up. Oh, okay, so you could use up the pigment in the other one, right? So you want to be sure that whatever that you are printing is worth printing. So whatever you say to that person or do to the other person is something you want physically to be like a permanent thing, and something you'd want repeated even, right? Like you wouldn't dislike having repeated. So again, back to that idea of texting yourself first, like writing it out, just because looking back at it later, I might see things where I'm like, some of these things I would still say to this person. Some of these things I would not, because I think it would do way more damage, and it's not the full picture of what I really feel. It's just what I was focused on in the moment. So there's that. Yeah. And then for this last little synchronicity book portion, this part is really long today, but I'm opening up this book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And this is a book about how different emotional things might cause different ailments. So I landed on abdominal area. And it says, incorrect use of judgment. So this is like your abdominal area being affected or in pain or in an adverse way, right? So I really did read abdominal area and abscess. Those are the two that my eyes went to. So I'm going to read through both of them. We've got incorrect use of judgment or wisdom. Identifies with possessions and has little sense of self, feeling possessive of someone, worrying about others and needs, and introspection to change the self. Feels responsible for giving understanding, help, and encouragement. That has really resonated with me. Sometimes we feel really responsible for keeping our cool and not being so emotional and kind of printing onto others, or like emotions that we might want to take. I don't know. That can have a bad connotation, but it shouldn't, right? As long as it's done healthily. Feels responsible for giving understanding, help, and encouragement, feeling undue tension, fear, and anxiety, which constricts the energy flow, disharmony and bondage in relationships, bound up in present fears and not trusting. And then with abscess, it says seething, unresolved, hurt feelings, wanting revenge, festering feelings, stagnation, holding on to an old concept. Well, those are pretty self-explanatory. Okay. And now for the final portion, which is, I'm going to just draw one card from these 2 oracle decks I have out right now, and then 3 tarot cards as a little oracle tarot reading. So to go with this message, September 22nd, or anytime you're seeing this. Oops. Wow. Trapped. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's do that again really quick. This is for today, 22nd September. I'm just going to draw. Got the Starborn. Okay. Oh my god. I'm a wreck right now, yo. Alchemical wedding. I'm going to do one more of these to clarify on the 2. Oh dearie. That was like a lot of them, so sorry. What a wreck today. Okay, this is what we're going with. This is it flipped over. We've got the uncreated. And it looks like a teardrop to me, or like some kind of gem in the shape of a teardrop. Okay. I'm gonna do 3 cards from this tarot deck, and then we'll get into it. Tell me about today, what we should be thinking, feeling. How should we be prepared to think for today? Or I guess advice. I just gotta do this over the table. It was like a directional card for the deck. Interesting, actually. A lot of people, some of the people I follow, look at these cards as kind of like messages, like incoming messages, text messages, or conversations even, but like, and it's in reverse, so this could be have to do with something with that. Okay, then we have the Queen of Wands reversed, which came out yesterday, or is that the Queen of Swords? That was the Queen of Swords. This is Queen of Wands reversed. Okay, what else? Oh my gosh, why am I like this? over the table, sorry, over the table. Okay. We've got 9 of Swords reversed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm about to sneeze. I had a thought and now I have to sneeze. Excuse me. So it's coming to mind for me right off the bat. Maybe these messages having to do with these messages. I don't think maybe it's chance that I had that thought that like write a text message to yourself before you send it, because this Queen of Wands in reverse is angry, she's fiery, she's upset, she is passionate, she's hot and fiery and ready to go, right? Has something to say. And then we have this 9 of Swords in reverse, which is saying like I want to be done with this 9 of Swords energy of being stuck up in my head, being up at night kept up at night by this, like I want this out of my brain. And so this wanting to get your own thoughts straight, one's own thoughts straight, and like get them out to the person it might be concerning or having, to do with. Uncreated, the Starborn, and the Alchemical Wedding. So we were talking earlier about alchemical wedding. What comes to mind is that with this Starborn card, I could feel like sometimes relationships that are really intense can feel like they're supposed to be that way, or like in your life or whatever. It makes it even harder to get out of this 9 of Swords energy, right? To reverse that. And I think this alchemical wedding is standing out to me of like looking at the light side and the dark side, the whole entire picture, and taking it into account, as opposed to maybe just the emotional bad things in the moment, or at any point the emotional good things, right? Like it's easy to stay infatuated and see all the really good things, or to be really pissed off and really upset and see only the bad things, and to interact with other people, with the other person that we're in a relationship with, whatever kind of relationship that may be, accordingly. So this is saying to look at the light and the dark aspects of the situation more in depth again today. It's a continuation again of that energy of introspection, and like we gotta take some kind of action here, but we gotta figure out what this even is before we take that action. So then we have this uncreated thing here, right, which is in the shape of a tear. Looks like rainbows and planets around it, right? It's like a water, tears, which, water gives life, is responsible for life on the planet, and we all need it, and we all give it, we recycle it, and it goes from one thing becomes another, right? When it comes to water, it's transferred from one thing to another. I'm kind of getting that allowing ourselves to shed tears and feel our feelings, and shedding of a tear is letting go of that water, letting go of that emotion, but understanding it and like allowing it to flow away from you. Accepting, acceptance is a word that comes to mind. not just seeing things as copacetic or pretending things are copacetic, but allowing oneself to create a new beginning by letting another thing go. And perhaps in allowing yourself to do this, the thoughts and ideas will really come to you, right? By showing acceptance of the dark and the light, we can get ourselves out of this Nine of Swords energy, put it in reverse. I'm going to do one little bit more. Give us an outcome if we are able to do this, or advice. Over the desk. Over the desk. Advice. Okay. Okay. Yeah. We have death and the devil reversed. So to me, this is saying, you know, these habits and addictions we have, the way that the ideas that we have that are kind of like what is the word I'm looking for? Bad habits or our vices, which may be investing, gambling, right, with someone over and over again, seeing, you know, maybe it's a really physical relationship that, you know, there are other strings attached that you don't want to let go of, even if it's unhealthy, or vice versa, it's healthy, but it has really hard things attached to it. The advice is to let it go. Let an ending occur. Whatever that might mean for you. I'm going to draw one more card from here. I know I keep saying that, to give us a little more insight on that advice. The forest. What comes to mind is the term seeing the forest for the trees, right? The bigger picture. Once you see the forest, you can go in and see the trees, right? And then you come back out and see the forest. So this going in and out of the bigger picture and the smaller things, weighing it out, seeing how much, you know, it's worth investing in or exploring in the future. That's the term that comes to mind. It's about seeing the forest for the trees. Anyway, yeah, those are the synchronicities for the day. This was a really long one. I'm going to try to keep them shorter, I think, but go on your merry way and do something to take care of yourself today. Do something that you love, right? Or eat something you love. Do something to take care of yourself the way that you would want anyone else, including someone, you know, maybe this person's relationship, to take care of you. You can do that for yourself and meet those own needs when they're not being met. And that's not to say that you should always have to do it. We're social creatures. We're made to be in relationships and in communities, but sometimes, you know, we do need to go in and do those things by ourselves, and we do need to, right? Take care of yourself, and see you tomorrow.